Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel where we do painting tutorials. I have swatched out 4 colors onto a scrap piece of watercolor paper, those being cadmium yellow, magenta, mauve purple, pink, and mauve purple. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. And I start by covering my page with just some clean water using a big fluffy brush to make this a bit easier, and then with a smaller brush I go in and start applying some of the yellow around the center of my pink. Then I gently mix a bit of the middle purple pink into the yellow, and I start surrounding the yellow with it, applying it mostly to the edges and the corners. And at one point I realized it would have been easier with a larger brush, so I go back to my big fluffy one. And I'm just building up color here. I'm just adding more yellow over the center, more pink around the edges. I want to get this layer pretty saturated. Then I add more magenta just on the corners. I'm basically using the scrap piece of watercolor paper like a watercolor palette where I've applied my watercolor pencils. And that way I can easily mix whatever tone and shade I need. And I'm able to work well and wet using watercolor pencils. That way I get a very nice soft diffused background. That's a very simple and easy beginner friendly technique to keep in mind, because oftentimes we're just limited. Like watercolor pencils come in sets of 12, 24, 36, sometimes 72, but oftentimes you will need a shade which you don't have, and this is how you get it. I want to skip a little piece on the bottom of my pink to make it like a little pathway in the forest, and I began adding just a small amount of violet to my magenta to very softly darken it up. Then I mix the pink with the yellow to get an orangey kind of tone, and I apply that away from my central highlight just to get a bit of a middle tone between the pink and the yellow. I left this to dry for like 2-3 minutes. I'm using cellulose paper, so that dries much faster compared to cotton paper. Keep that in mind. And with this orangey mix, I do very faint tree shapes. In the distance, they're going to diffuse and bleed out to the wet background. I ran out of my colors on my little scrap piece of watercolor paper there, so I just applied some more. I mixed the yellow with the pink again. I left my pink to dry for about 10 minutes. The colors are still going to softly bleed into the background, however, you will be able to define the shapes. So I mixed this orangey tone, adding a bit more pink to it. I don't know, I just preferred having a bit more pink over it. And I paint some very loose and faint tree shapes with my smaller brush, like a couple of tall pines on either side of the highlight, framing it and framing the entire little pathway we're gonna have on the bottom. And I take some pink and magenta and I use it on the bottom side of the trees for a shadow, on the bottom side and on the side that is opposite the highlight. I also slightly use it on the bottom of the trees for the ground, the foresty bit. Then I mostly take my magenta and I repeat this with a couple extra trees that are closer towards the edges of the paper, aka closer towards us as the viewer. I added a bit of the violet into the mix to paint the ground beneath these trees I just added, and I'll leave this to fully air dry. Once everything has set, I take just some of the magenta and I'm going to paint some more trees on top of the previous ones. I start with a base of this magenta tone. I do a straight line for the tree trunk and then I tap to add the foliage. If drawing is not your thing, there is going to be a traceable available over at my Patreon page, Sunshine Arts, where we also do full-time painting tutorials and I offer digital downloads of my paintings. If any of that interests you, links are going to be down in the description and at the end of this video. And if you're curious about any of the art supplies, again, they're going to be listed down in the description. Now I repeat the same exact steps on the right side of the pink. I draw a straight line for the tree trunk with my magenta and I tap over it for the foliage. It's perfectly fine if some parts of the trees end up being out of frame. I actually prefer that and I find that it gives a more realistic and natural look, even though we're going for anything but realism with this pink. It's just some fun I wanted to have and experiment with different color combinations And that's why I did this painting. I just want to have some fun. Then I take the same color I used for the trees and I apply it beneath for the ground. I mix in a bit of violet with the magenta, and I'm going to use this on the bottom side of the foliage to add some shadows, and also on the sides of the trees that are closest towards the edge of the paper. So for the tree on the right side, I'm going to paint the shadows on the right side of the tree, and on the tree on the left side, I'm going to add the shadows on the left side away from our highlight. And you guessed it, I will be adding violet on the bottom corners of this page right beneath these final trees I just did. And I thought I'd scramble just a bit of it on the very bottom of the path, sort of make it look like, you know, when a car passes by at least 2 trails for the 2 wheels, or maybe a horse carriage or whatever. That was the idea I was going for. Then while my trees are still slightly wet, I take my violet shade and I apply it again on the bottom side of the trees and on the side that is facing away from the highlight. Since the trees are wet, the pencil is going to be much more vibrant. It's gonna go on softly like a crayon, so be careful with that. I've had them slip occasionally and it may mess up the painting. Another technique you can do is just rub a wet brush onto the pencil to pick up the pigments straight from it, and then you can apply it like normal paint. Lastly, I slowly peel off the tape, and that is it. I'd like to give a very special thank you to my Patreon supporters for the month of July, and thank you all for watching. If you liked this video, let me know down in the comments, and we'll see each other in the next one. Bye bye!